So it's one of those days where we're going to do two moving forward series in a day. And today, in our next moving forward series episode, we're going to talk about the Vancouver Whitecaps, who no doubt has one of the craziest season out of any MLS team this year. I mean, the fact that this team, for the middle part of the season, looked like they were dead and buried in terms of their playoff chances, and it looked like this long rebuild that they've been doing for the past couple of years once again stall out. Insert Vanni Sartini and making a couple of decent move in the summer transfer window, and then all of a sudden this team went on a crazy run in the second half of the year and made it to the playoffs, and probably also kind of becoming the people's team of MLS. Like, you simply cannot hate the Vancouver Whitecaps with the incredible run that they had in the second half of the season, and that, you know, that tenacity that they had in terms of really fighting for their interim head coach and eventually getting into the playoffs for the first time in 5 years. I think that's kind of one of the feel-good story that we had this season. But overall, they finished with a record of 12, 13, and 9 and finished with 49 points. They scored exactly the same amount of goals that they gave up this season, which I think that they're the only team to do so this year, to give up the same amount of goals that they score, with them scoring 45 goals and giving up 45 goals for a goal differential of 0. They finished 6th in the Western Conference, but unfortunately their feel-good story and incredible run in the second half of the season came into a halt, and that I feel like, you know, I've also said before in the playoffs where I talk about the Vancouver Whitecaps being a dark horse, and I feel like these last 2 years of me, whenever calling a team a dark horse in MLS and heading into the playoffs, that seems like it started to become a bit of a curse. Because I think last year I talked about how the Colorado Rapids was going to be a dark horse because they had a good run heading into the second half of the season, and then they stalled out against Minnesota United. And the same happened to the Vancouver Whitecaps, who, you know, even though they had a really tough task to face against a Sporting KC side, I didn't think that they were going to be faced by that, and I thought they were going to pull it off, considering, yes, Sporting KC were a team that I've said that it is going to be one of the contender for MLS Cup, but this was also a Sporting KC team that was basically run to the ground by Peter Vermees with his lack of substitution. And I even said that if there is one upset that most likely is going to happen, it's going to be that game, but unfortunately it did not happen, and I'll kind of talk about why it didn't happen in the what went wrong part for this Whitecaps team. But overall, in terms of the top goal scorer, Brian White. I mean, I hate to say that I told you so, but I told you. I told you in the summer transfer window when the New York Red Bulls decided to trade White to the Vancouver Whitecaps. I thought this was going to be secretly one of the best, if not the best deal we see in the summer transfer window. Because I know during the limited time that Brian White was with the Red Bulls, he is definitely a capable MLS goal scorer, and I'm pretty sure the Red Bulls are definitely regretting letting him go, especially with the way that, you know, there's really no Red Bulls player that actually score as many goals as Brian White has this season, and the fact that he only did it in half of the time when he was with the Whitecaps is just absolutely incredible. Like, he scored 12 goals this season. I think only Chicho Arango was the player to score more goals since the summer transfer window than Brian White has. But then you got Christian Dahomey with 10 goals, followed by Diber Caicedo with 5 goals, Ryan Gault with 4 goals, and then the one of the most, if not the most disappointing player in this Whitecaps team, that is Lucas Cavallini, only finished with 3 goals this season for this team. Top assist leader, you got Diber Caicedo with 7 assists, followed by Ryan Gault, another guy that secretly is one of the best signing we've seen any team made, and certainly it seems like the Whitecaps have finally long found their missing puzzle in terms of searching for a number 10 that can pull the string, and that of course is Ryan Gault with 6 assists. Then you got Brown with 5 assists, followed by Dahomey with 5 assists, and Brian White finished with the top 5 assist leader for the Whitecaps with 5 assists. So what went right for this Whitecaps team? I mean, the obvious thing that went right for this team is the Vanni Sartini magic. I mean, it all started from that 10-game win unbeaten run that they gone, and the resilience that they shown throughout that unbeaten run, and also pretty much throughout the latter part of the season, where they just refused to lose. Like, in most games, you can see that they do everything to try and scrape themselves a draw or even get themselves a victory. And that, I think the biggest example of that was shown in that game against the Portland Timbers, because I think, or in that game against the Portland Timbers on the road, where that was just a classic Vanni Sartini kind of game where you think that the Whitecaps are down and out with them losing 2-0, and I'm pretty sure previous Whitecaps team, they would have lost that game 99 out of 100 times. But because of the fact that, these players, they seem to love to play play under Vanni Sartini and just believe in each other, they pulled off that incredible comeback, which is really considered probably one of the highlight moment, if not the highlight moment of this Whitecaps team this season, and probably one of the most impressive victory that they pull off in recent memories. But besides the Vanni Sartini magic and eventually them making him a permanent head coach, there was also the revelation of Ryan Gaul and Brian White. I mean, I already talked about Brian White being an incredible player after the Whitecaps signed him from the Red Bulls. But Ryan Gaul, I mean, there was consideration that he was going to be the newcomer of the year. I mean, he eventually lost out to Chicho Gaul, but there is definitely claim that of course is the case. I mean, I know when you look at the stats chart wise, the stats might not show that Ryan Gaul is that impressive with the way that 4 goals and 6 assists. Okay, yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's not a number that usually will ring you out as a newcomer of the year, but when you actually watch him play in a Whitecaps shirt, you can tell why he is such an electric player, and a guy that, again, he is going to be a star in this league, and a guy that the Whitecaps have finally been long looking for to fill in that missing puzzle that they had in the number 10 position. And believe me, this guy, I think next year he could easily hit 10 goals and 10 assists next season, and could really be in the conversation of potentially being a guy that is considered the best number 10 in the league. Then you of course have the fact that they finally ended the playoff drought that they've been going for. I think coming into this year, they were a team that has the longest active playoff drought in 5 seasons, and they finally ended that by reaching the playoffs for the first time in 5 years. And the other thing that I didn't write here on the board that went right for this Whitecaps team, BC Place was an absolute fortress. Like, ever since they returned to BC Place in August after spending a couple of months playing at a neutral venue at Rio Tinto Stadium, they only lost once at BC Place. Like, that stadium was just a place that all the sudden turned into a place where you just do not want to visit. And it isn't just because of the Whitecaps fan really create a good atmosphere even in limited capacity, but the fact that the Whitecaps, they just do what all MLS teams do to be successful and able to get to the playoffs. You get your home wins at home, and you're able to go on the road to get draws. And they did that most of the time, and then some, because of the way that they were also able to get some road points when they go on the road, and some road wins. So what went wrong for this Whitecaps team? So I know, when you look at the Whitecaps this season, there's got to be consideration that this is not only a successful year, but they maybe even exceed expectation with how this year is. I mean, as much as I did say earlier that this season, their expectation is making the playoffs to progress to this rebuild, but with the way how they look and the way that they kind of fought back, I don't think that was kind of part of the expectation, and in some way just kind of exceed that. But despite exceed expectation, there were definitely something that went wrong with this team. And the first thing that went wrong is no doubt the struggle that they had in the first half of the season. And I will say this, pretty much all 3 Canadian teams had that similar struggle. Well, I wouldn't say all 3, because I thought Montreal was pretty much the only Canadian team that was adapting well in terms of playing in a neutral venue every single game and playing with no fans. But the Whitecaps, like TFC, they really struggle in terms of that, and it's understandable considering Rio Tinto Stadium is not at their home. There was even that one game where they had to play against RSL in a game where they were deemed as the home team, but really that was a game where RSL of course was the home team. And I also think that was the game, didn't RSL decide to open up the stands for a Whitecaps home game? And that I talked about how that seems like a very kind of bad way to give the Whitecaps some home field advantage, because you're deemed as the home team, and I think that might be the first time where when you're deemed as the home team, you actually don't even get home field advantage, but because you're playing against a team that is basically the team that kind of owns the stadium, or kind of like the landlords of that stadium. And we also kind of had the fun rent versus landlord battle between the Whitecaps and RSL, and unsurprisingly, the Whitecaps really struggle in terms of those games. That was at Rio Tinto Stadium. And then let's not to mention that this technically didn't have anything to do with how their MLS season, but I think probably the rock bottom moment for this Whitecaps team wasn't actually happening in MLS, but it happened in the Canadian Championship. Like, they once again lose to a Canadian Premier League team. I mean, we talked about a couple of years. Losing to Calgary was definitely a huge embarrassment, but the fact that they did it again in the game against Pacific, and while that was definitely a great game to watch if you're a neutral where that game ended 4-3, the fact that it happened again to this Whitecaps team, I mean, that is just definitely a huge disappointment. And considering the fact that coming into this game, they were also kind of started to go on that good run where they would, I think they were like in the midst of them, eventually went on this 10-game unbeaten run, and the fact that they took a loss against a CPL team once again, yeah, I mean, that was truly the rock bottom moment for this Whitecaps team this season. And then, of course, the last thing that went wrong, as much as we praise what Vanni Sartini has done to this team to get them into the playoffs, in the playoffs, this is where there's maybe some critics that, yeah, Sartini kind of got it wrong in the playoffs. And he got it wrong in terms of the tactics and also in terms of the substitution. But I won't really go too harshly on that because, again, this is the first time of him being in the playoffs, and he's guiding a very young and inexperienced team in the playoffs against a much more experienced playoff team that is Sporting KC. But again, and I kind of just want to mention it because of the way that, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, as much as the Whitecaps didn't play well during that game against Sporting KC, some of the blame has to go with Sartini, especially with the lineup that he rolled. Was kind of a surprise that he decided to go with a back line that featured two guys that didn't even play starting minutes for a majority of the year and kept some of his starters in that back line on the bench, even though it kind of doesn't make sense when you're about to play the biggest game of your season against Sporting KC in the playoffs. So moving forward for this Whitecaps team, well, one thing that I want to say moving forward for this team that I didn't write here on the board is that this long rebuild is now officially over. Like this, I think it is official that this Whitecaps team is starting to become not only a playoff contender, but almost at that tier of being an MLS Cup contender. And a lot of that has to do with the way that they already have some key pieces in most part of their field, and they also make some good signing during the summer transfer window where they don't really need to spend a lot of money or even really need to sign a lot of player to address some of their issue. I mean, I think the only thing that they might need to add is, of course, some depth pieces in some of the spot, and especially on the attacking front where, let's say, if Brian White or Ryan goes down with injury, there's no doubt that they need to find some good replacement in case if that happened. But the other thing that I also say moving forward for this team, and this is something that I think happens when a team unexpectedly make a good run, either in the beginning of the season or in the latter part of the season to make it to the playoffs. And there's always that notion of the fact that was that actually just fluke, and was that just maybe the Whitecaps kind of used the momentum. And there's no doubt that good run that they had was fueled by momentum and fueled by them believing that they can achieve something good. But the question is, was that just that, or is this something good to happen? And I think it's going to be interested to find out next season whether or not if this Whitecaps team can sustain the good ability that they had last season. Because if that is not the case next year, then unfortunately we have to say that late season run was kind of just a bit of a fluke, and maybe things haven't turned a page for this Whitecaps team. And maybe of what I also declare the fact that this long rebuild is officially over, maybe isn't actually over just yet. Time to offload the Cavallini DP contract. So I'm kind of surprised they still haven't got rid of Lucas Cavallini, considering the fact that he's basically a guy that I know some will say that he might be a good depth piece for Brian White, but you know, if you're going to make him a good depth piece, you shouldn't make him a DP player. And there's no doubt that I have no doubt that Cavallini will not want to stay for the Whitecaps, especially, you know, if the Whitecaps ask him to maybe take a bit of a pay cut and not carry that DP contract. I mean, Lucas Cavallini is just gonna flat out say no. Like, there's no way he's going to get lower pay cut and then basically sit on the bench to be a backup when coming into the 2020 season. And a couple of years ago, he was supposedly the main guy for this team. So there's no doubt that I think the only option for the Whitecaps is that they're gonna have to find a way to maybe let go of Cavallini. I mean, I know there's been a lot of interest in Liga MX that Cavallini is going to be picked up, and looks like he's going to be going back to Mexico. But either way, I think the Whitecaps are going to have to offload that contract, because that's not really good contract that they're taking. And anytime when you have a DP player on the bench, you know that something, of course, went wrong with some of the signings, and that's one of the signings that, you know, the Whitecaps didn't get it right. Though I will say that this was also before a couple of years when they were in the midst of that long rebuild, and hell, they also got a couple of those DP signings just got completely wrong. But, you know, if they do free up that spot, that means they will have 2 designated players. Though even with a 2 DP spot, I don't think they really need to spend it right away. Again, I think that the structure that this Whitecaps team currently has is good enough to be a playoff contender, barring if some of those players maybe regress a little bit heading into next year. And even if they do regress, I think it's better for them to, you know, if they do hold on to their DP spot heading into the season, at least they have that in mind, that, you know, if some of these players regress, maybe we'll make some signing in the summer transfer window and kind of boost this team to be once again a playoff contender. So that's why I think the Whitecaps are in a really good situation in terms of them potentially spending some money, and especially using their DP spot wisely. So yeah, I think this offseason, again, going back to what I said, how I don't think there's a lot of big move that they need to make. I mean, in some way they already made their biggest move with getting Tristan Blackman from LAFC, and I won't be surprised the fact that, you know, I know Whitecaps fan would say that they might need some depth in terms of it, but besides that, I think they should be a team to be competing to the Western Conference, and maybe finally enter the conversation of not be the forgotten Cascadia team in that region. I mean, I always love to see the Sounders and the Timbers basically battle for the Cascadia supremacy, but imagine if the Whitecaps joined the conversation. And imagine, you know, I even said when I did that video of who can end the Timbers and Sounders kind of dominance, imagine if the Whitecaps can end that dominance and still yet continue the Cascadia dominance in terms of a Cascadia team representing the Western Conference in an MLS Cup. I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that, because, you know, the Whitecaps deserve it. I mean, it's been a rough last couple of years for this franchise, and, you know, it's good to see them finally start winning again, and finally they see their fans that has been really in the thick of Finn throughout these last couple of years to finally have a winning team that could be a playoff contender for a lot of years down the line. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're a Whitecaps fan, what do you think went right, went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to look next season? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.